Hello, I'm Mark Mason, Communications Manager for Dash. Today's Ask Me Anything is with Dash Core Group CEO Ryan Taylor. We are broadcasting this live on several social media channels. We should be live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch, if all's gone to plan. The YouTube link should also be available on the Dash, Discord, Reddit, and Telegram channels. Can I kindly ask that you like and share this video stream so that we can reach as many people as possible? Today's Ask Me Anything will be for 60 minutes. Please feel free to start submitting your questions for Ryan. We will do our very best to answer as many of your questions as possible. Please do try to keep your questions as short and direct as possible. I will do my best to select the best questions relevant to the community. This is a brand new format, so please do bear with us if there are any technical difficulties. Hopefully, all will go smoothly. And while I wait for the first few questions to come in, I have a few pre-prepared questions from the Dash community to start off with. So let's begin. Okay, Ryan, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay, first question. Is Dash's recent price growth sustainable? Do you think Dash can go back to its 2017 all-time high?
Well, I tend not to prognosticate on price, but certainly the recent price run has been pretty eyebrow rising, I guess you could say. I think that 2017 was a pretty unique set of circumstances for the economics of the network and some other variables. But, I think in the power of this rally, it's hard for me to doubt, whether an all-time high would be possible. I think that we're seeing some tremendous rising tide in the overall market, and Dash has been doing really well within that market the last few weeks. So I think looking back, you can see at points in time where we've just had a tremendous price move in a short period of time. I think it's possible. And I think we're in a much better position to be able to sustain something like that this time around, because when you look at usage and other metrics, 2017, we had like 7,000 transactions a day in the fourth quarter of 2017. And we thought that was pretty amazing. Today, we're at 25,000 or more in a typical day of economic transactions. And so I think that there's some arguments to make that there's no reason we can't reach that all-time high. Clearly, we're reaching a much larger audience at this point and have a lot more real-world usage. And we've got some unique attributes today, like the reallocation that's occurring of the block reward that's encouraging, the slower growth in circulating supply. And so I think there are reasons to think that we could get there. But, that's not financial advice. I don't know.
Yeah, it's certainly been a few exciting weeks for Dash.
Exactly.
And the news has been fantastic as well. Okay, let's move on quickly as time is moving forward. So are you going to rename PrivateSend? Why, when, and will this change any functionality?
Yeah, so we are planning on renaming PrivateSend in the next major release. We're actually leaning towards unbranding it as opposed to rebranding it. There's a few reasons for that decision. I think one of them is, we're about to bring in a new head of marketing who's skilled in this area, and presumably they may have a point of view on it. It gives us greater flexibility to rename it at some point in the future. I think we're leaning towards just calling it what it is, which is CoinJoin. And I think that is a mechanism of really dealing with the regulatory issue as effectively as possible, but also gives us the flexibility to name the feature at some point in the future when we've really had the opportunity to professionally analyze what the options are and how they resonate with consumers and that type of thing. So I think for now we'll just unbrand it, call it CoinJoin, and the only change you'll see is a change to the name on the tab in the wallet. That's the only change. As far as whether there's any changes to PrivateSend, no, we're not making any technical changes to PrivateSend. The functionality itself will be identical. This is an area we plan on investing in the future. This is a post-platform rollout type of feature that we want to start to concentrate more efforts on. There have been a lot of developments in CoinJoin over the years that haven't been incorporated. I think that it would, behoove our users to have access to those more advanced forms of CoinJoin. I think the perception issue that PrivateSend is somehow different than what is available on Bitcoin is one of the things that has caused regulators to focus attention on Dash, and it's not good attention. I think that this is an issue where, not everyone agrees with it, but the feedback we've gotten so far has been very positive. And what people care about is whether or not we're changing that functionality. And the answer is no, we're not degrading the functionality in any way.
Okay, thank you, Ryan, for providing clarity on that. I know that was something that the Dash community was very interested in, because it was referenced in the Q4 summary call. If you've not watched that, I recommend you watch that. Lots of interesting metrics and KPIs and an updated roadmap. While we're on the topic of privacy, Andreas Antonopolous recently tweeted that Dash isn't a privacy coin. I replied to this tweet, but I'm curious to know, do you agree with this?
Well, I agree with it from the standpoint that PrivateSend being an implementation of CoinJoin, it requires absolutely no change to the Bitcoin transaction protocol at all in order to function. Every input, every output, every address, every amount, it's all there. And so in that respect, there's nothing private about a transaction. If you look at FinCEN's definition of an anonymity-enhanced cryptocurrency, which, people use the terms privacy coin and AEC interchangeably, and no legal body has ever defined what those two things are or whether there are differences between them. But if you assume that AEC equals privacy coin, the definition put forward by FinCEN, Dash clearly does not meet it. It says that it obfuscates these details, that those details can't be analyzed by any third party. That's simply not the case. And therefore, I agree with the statement. I don't think Dash is a privacy coin, certainly not from a legal perspective. Now, does it have privacy features? Yes. Same with many of the wallets available with Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin. That doesn't make the currency itself a privacy network or a privacy currency.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, next question in from Kay via YouTube. Do you see Bitcoin's Lightning Network as a serious competitor to Dash?
I would say definitely not in its current form. There's a few reasons for that. First of which is it doesn't really solve the on-chain problem. In order to open or close a Lightning channel, you need to do an on-chain transaction. And so to custody your own coins and use the Litecoin network, it still has to go on that congested highway in the first place, which in and of itself creates a bad user experience. You otherwise need to use a custodial service, which does away with a lot of the benefits of peer-to-peer currency. And then the last component is there are a lot of user experience issues with using the Lightning Network, including limitations on the amount that can be sent, the complications of routing it, and not always having a route available to you that meets the needs of the transaction. A certain percentage of them just fail. And so when you have something that is not reliable or doesn't provide all the other benefits of peer-to-peer cash, I don't view it as a direct competitor. Now, can it compete for many of the same transactions? Yes, there's obviously overlap. If you think of a Venn diagram, there are some people that, you know, the Lightning Network would work just fine for, and they're okay with custody, and they're transacting in a lower amount, and they meet all the criteria, and it works for them, and that's fine. But I don't view most people as, I don't view this as a mainstream type of solution yet. Now, they may be able to improve it. There are a lot of resources going into the Lightning Network, and it may yet become viable, but having looked at the architecture and the usability of it, I think there's still a long way to go before they're where they need to be on a usability front.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Okay, we've got a question from Periscope via Twitter by Trades88. What countries are you looking to adopt Dash more and more?
Well, I'm a big advocate of density with new payment methods. You know, you think about just about any new payment method that's been introduced, they find a community, whether that is an online community or a physical community to build from. And so I think we need to be careful not to spread ourselves too thin. At the same time, we need to be willing to experiment. If we find that we can get a lot of traction for cultural reasons or for economic reasons in a certain region, we should be willing to experiment with some things and see if we can get traction. Venezuela has been great for us. I really believe that continued investment in Venezuela and connected economies is likely to generate the most real world use growth relative to other opportunities. And I mean, Dash is small. The budget is relatively small. So the idea of trying to create the ecosystem on a global scale, it's really difficult to make that argument. And so I think we should continue to scan other countries for high inflation, for difficulty with transactions, economic restrictions. Places like Ecuador, place heavy restrictions on money transmission in and out of the country that make it almost impossible for even businesses to conduct business outside the country. So, it doesn't have to be inflation. There are other use cases that we could see as being really powerful. But for now, I do think a concentration on Latin America and Venezuela in particular really is kind of a good use. And then outside of that, within certain ecosystems, and Dash Core Group has been very transparent about the ecosystems we're targeting here with like gaming and traders. We've seen our trading volume continue to increase over the last year as we've rolled out that FastPass network. And that desire for liquidity on these exchanges drives demand for the coin. So there are opportunities, but we need to stay concentrated, in my view. But we also need to be open to that experimentation.
Okay, next question in from Mike and Mel Agelinas. Can you talk about the upcoming halving event in May?
Yeah, so Dash has a built-in mechanism similar to Bitcoin where the coin emission rate drops over time. With Bitcoin, that drop is about 50% in any given year. Or in the years in which it's dropping. And it's about every 4 years, there's a 50% cut in the new coins that are emitted by the network. In Dash, it's more gradual. It's 7.1% roughly. It's 1/14 to be precise, every year, approximately. It's actually a little bit more than a year. It's like a year and 2 weeks or something. And basically, halving is not really the correct term for it. It's more like a slight reduction. It's the equivalent to a halving every 10 years. And so for Dash, it happens a little more gradually than it does with Bitcoin, and it happens more smoothly. Now, those events are important for several reasons. It includes the impact that it has on the treasury. It has an impact on mining and masternode rewards and so on. And so the overall effect is it does slow down the rate of growth of circulating supply. And so it will be beneficial to our circulating supply inflation rate. And that'll happen again next year and the year after that. So
yeah, thanks, Ryan. This might be a great point to mention that, and I think it's something you tweeted out recently in your account. There is a upcoming block reward reallocation reduction. I think it's just a couple of weeks away, isn't it? Yeah, it's actually next Thursday. So once a quarter for about the next 3.5, 4.5 years or so, there is a slight reallocation in the block reward between miners and masternodes. And the portion going towards mining goes down slightly, and the portion going towards masternodes increases slightly at each one of those events. And so this has a lot of complex economic results to it that we've gone through and analyzed and attempted to predict. And it has almost more of an effect in the near term than these halving events do. And so those are the events that I would focus on for the time being. Absolutely. And if you're interested to learn more, the Dash documentation has a lot more on that. The tokenomics of Dash look to improve upon Bitcoin with a much more smoother coin emission rate. We have a really nice chart in there, and I would encourage you to look into that if you're interested. I do think it needs to be updated to reflect the new changes, though, correct, Ryan?
Yeah, and the target here is to reduce the growth rate in circulating supply. These are coins that aren't tied up in masternodes. And to give you an idea of the impact this change has had, 1 year ago, our circulating supply growth rate was growing at about 27%. Now that's unsustainably high, right? You can't maintain parity with Bitcoin or any other coin. Although these days you can keep up with the inflation rate and supply of US dollars, but that wasn't good enough, right? And so we introduced these elements to the network. They just started, the first one took place in November, and it's already had a tremendous impact on the growth rate of our circulating supply. And the idea is that circulating supply growth should never exceed 10% ever again in our future. And so that does have a significant impact on Dash's capabilities to function as a store of value.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing a repricing of Dash right now. It was one of the things I predicted would happen if we implemented this, and it seems to be having an effect.
I totally agree, Ryan. This is a really big topic. And if you haven't done so already, I would really encourage you to go to the Dash YouTube channel and go to the Q4 2020 summary call, where Ryan actually presents a number of charts and breaks down. There's going to be a number of changes over a 5-year period, and it's a great topic. And this is really instrumental to the tokenomics of Dash. So please do check that out if you haven't done so already. Okay, let's move on. So I'm combining two questions here. So Halawe actually followed up to someone else's question regarding marketing. So Ryan, do you see the new head of marketing as the face for Dash Core Group or for the Dash network?
Well, when you think of, I would say that we have different groups that we're targeting, right? And I don't think any one person should ever be the face of DCG or the network. We have multiple leaders, and the head of marketing will be another one of those leaders that represents the network and represents the network's interests. Now, when I think about the end consumer, I have no idea who the head of marketing of PayPal is, right? And so when you're targeting users in Venezuela or people that are just going to have this as part of their daily life, if they're Dash enthusiasts and they really become interested in it, they may become familiar with the executives of Dash Core Group. I don't know. But I don't think it's necessary for this person to be a public figure, to everyday users of Dash. When you talk about investors, this may be a role that investors are very interested in. So when you think about masternode owners or institutional investors or things like that, I think they should be in the communication and interfacing with that group. When you think about the developers, probably less so, though we're certainly planning on marketing to that group to create apps and create benefit for our users in our ecosystem, generate transactions and so on. And so, when it comes to hosting events for developers or doing something like that, this may become a person that developer community becomes familiar with. And then you've got traders and other groups and so on. And so it's going to vary. I think that when it comes to our main target, which is growth of everyday use as a currency, most people are probably not going to be familiar with them unless they become a Dash enthusiast and really become an advocate for what we're doing. So that's the way that I'm viewing it. Certainly there'll be an externally facing role to it, but a lot of what they do will, be behind the scenes.
Thank you, Ryan. I just want to say to the viewers watching, submitting questions, I'm seeing a lot of questions regarding price predictions. Ryan kind of addressed these questions at the very start of the stream. So if we can have kind of more some objective questions, either development, I'm also seeing lots of questions on marketing, that's fine. But yeah, the pricing questions, please forgive me, I think we've already addressed that. So I just want to make that clear. Okay, while we're on the topic of marketing, there's another question that's come in. So just to follow up on that, Ryan, while we're on the subject, has the chief marketing officer been hired yet? Can you share what's being planned to get Dash's name out there leading to the mainnet release? I think you covered some of this stuff, but perhaps you can just expand a little bit more.
Yeah, the chief marketing officer role has been, we hired an external recruiting firm and also posted the position to our community back in mid-December-ish, as we were heading into the holidays. So we didn't get, a lot of traction with that until January. The recruiting firm interviewed somewhere around 60 to 80 people and did additional outreach and so on, actually recruiting for this role. Narrowed that down to about 4 that they presented to us for interviews. All 4 of those have gone through first round interviews with at least 2 people. We have started final round interviews, and they're slated to conclude early next week. So I think we will be presenting an offer soon and hope to have some news out to the community here within the next couple of weeks. Start date obviously would be subject to negotiation, but I would be very surprised if we didn't have someone on board full-time by mid to late March.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, interesting question up next from Kay again. I think they asked the question beforehand, but if Dash goes mainstream, is there any need for Bitcoin? Does digital gold make sense in a world where digital cash is equally scarce but more useful?
Well, I think that whether you're talking need or want are 2 different things. As impassioned as a lot of our Dash users are, Bitcoin users are equally impassioned and believe in their mission. And, kind of like these are belief systems, right? That money is what it is because we all believe that someone else is going to accept it as money. And so it acts, little shreds of paper act as a store of value because we all have bought into that concept, right? And so much like a religion, I guess, different religions can coexist alongside of each other. And so I think that's likely to be the case. You're not going to convince Charlie Lee to give up Litecoin or, any of the Bitcoin maximalists to give up their Bitcoin. That is their preference. And, any amount of evidence, I don't think would convince them to switch. And so I think this is about market share capture as opposed to does it make sense or do they need to use Bitcoin versus one of the other cryptocurrencies. I think that, for me, I have evaluated Bitcoin and I've evaluated Dash, and I like Dash better. And so I don't own any Bitcoin. And I'm fine with that. If Bitcoin does well, great. And so I think the answer is these things can coexist alongside each other. I think they're very likely to coexist in the world alongside of each other. And I think that's a beautiful thing because it gives people choices. And what we want to do is give people the best choice for the most number of people possible. And so that's our drive to make the product better and better.
Wow, you got me convinced there, Ryan. All right. Here's a familiar face. It's Tao Satoshi from Cash Alternative TV. He submitted a question saying, any plans for a modified dynamic treasury proposal anytime soon? Now, Ryan, you may have to keep this in layman's terms because we may have new people to Dash here, and this is quite technical.
Yes, this is quite technical. So the background here is that back in November and December, we submitted a series of proposals proposing a set of changes to the way in which unused treasury funds were allocated and the total size of the treasury. These are basically attributes of how the block reward itself is distributed in the blocks and the super blocks. And there at first there were two proposals alongside of each other, and one of those proceeded to a final vote, and it was basically that proposal versus the existing functionality of the network, and the existing functionality of the network passed, and so the proposal failed basically. It got more yes votes than no votes, but it didn't reach the high threshold that it needed to in order to actually constitute the change. And so basically we're facing a decision right now as to how to proceed. Now, people voted against the proposal for two reasons. One, they thought that the proposal would cause masternode owners who make the decisions about the allocation of that treasury too stingy, and they wouldn't spend anything. Another group voted no because they felt like the masternodes would go wild with this with a expanded budget and would spend it all, and masternode rewards might drop. And so both of those things cannot happen. You can't, not spend money and spend money at the same time. So our thinking was, well, we should break up the components of it into its constituent parts and vote on them separately and see if that passes. My fear with it was that we may be reaching a proposal, decision proposal like fatigue. And the feedback I've gotten via email and Discord and some other channels is, no, we want to have these votes and we want to continue with the process. Now, I haven't resubmitted those yet. I do want to get your feedback. If you have comments, please put them here, and I will read them all. And so I'm looking for feedback from the community. This is another proposal that I believe would have an impact on Dash's attributes as a store of value, the value we get out of treasury, and you know, I believe strongly that these are needed. So I think we'll pursue it eventually, and the timing is kind of the question at this point. And overall, the level of support has been strong. But if you oppose that idea, I'd love to hear why, and you know, when you think a good timeline would be, or any feedback that you have. So, and I will take that feedback. The team will take that feedback, digest it, and we'll make appropriate decisions on, you know, whether we should go forward with a broken up proposal.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, please forgive me. I do not know how to pronounce your name, and I'm not even going to attempt it, but I appreciate your questions. So we've got a few questions here. So maybe, Ryan, you could just get through them as fast as you can. So do you plan to expand the team, meaning Dash Core Group, create fiat reserves? Well, maybe you can talk about the Dash Core Group reserves there and how healthy that is, and yeah, then we can let's keep the treasury question afterwards, because that's price related, but let's just focus on the first two. Do you plan to expand Dash Core Group, and how is Dash Core Group doing in terms of reserves, because that impacts your decisions on whether you can expand or not?
Yeah, so Dash Core Group's run rate requires a price of somewhere around $90. So this price run has allowed us to really sock away quite a bit of reserves fairly quickly. Now, the most recent price jump is relatively recent, right? It was about a week and a half ago that it really started. And so we really haven't had the opportunity to take full advantage of this yet. We don't liquidate the Dash when we receive it in the super block. We spread any sales out over time. And so we are, you know, we did benefit from the price run. And at the current price, we are socking away money at a fairly rapid rate. Our reserves are the healthiest they've been since early 2018. In fact, relative to our run rate, they're the healthiest that we've ever been. And so if the price today were to go to $1, we would have enough runway to last 4 or 5 months, you know, at this point with no further income, basically. Now, obviously, the price isn't going to go to $1. I'll start buying it in droves long before then, as will a lot of other people. But it gives you a sense of how large the reserves are and what we could sustain. We could sustain a price of 40 for, you know, almost a year. So this makes Dash Core Group far more sustainable. That's not the only thing we're doing with the money, though. And expanding the team is something we're actively evaluating right now. There are several development roles that are critical for us. One of them is a Go developer. Tendermint, that TenderDash is based off of, and Dash Drive and a lot of platform runs off of, is written in Go. And our developers don't have extensive Go experience, so making changes to that system is more time consuming than it should be if we had a Go developer on board. So that's one role that we're specifically looking at, and we believe that's a permanent need. Another couple of roles that we're looking at are to supplement the team and get through some of the work that we have to do a bit faster. So we are going to be taking advantage of this, hiring some temporary roles, some permanent roles. I would like to see, you know, depending on what we see with the price here and how long this lasts, I would like to see greater investment in marketing and business development as well. That's an area that really took the brunt of the hit in 2018 and 2019 when we cut the size of the team to accommodate the lower run rate that we had to hit. And I feel like that's really been underinvested in the last couple of years. Our last marketing proposal was in September 2019. And so, you know, we've got a proposal up now. It's getting strong support, you know, and it looks like it's going to pass. So that's an area where we will finally have funding again for the first time in a very long time. And so, you know, I would like to take advantage of this and expand the team as well. But it's a balance. I don't want to take people on that we may not be able to sustain for the long term. And so that requires a certain level of reserves. But we are actively going through the process of defining roles, beginning to put feelers out, looking at community members that have been part of the team on a volunteer basis to see if they could fill a full-time role. We're kind of looking at all of it.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, if you're new to Dash and treasury proposal sounds new to you, Dash is a decentralized autonomous organization. That's another quite big topic to go into, but essentially Dash is a self-governing, self-funding network. And that kind of leads up to the next question with regards to the treasury, because where in Bitcoin, 100% of the block rewards goes to the miners, with Dash, it's divvied up. And some of that goes to a treasury where we can help support and build our network, and people that can add value to the network, such as Dash Core Group in terms of development sense, can submit proposals to the network and receive funding. And there are many other entities, such as myself, that receive funding from the network as well. So with an increase in Dash price, means that increase in terms of the block reward reallocation remains the same, but it means you get more purchasing power. So which means we have more money to play with in the budget of the price appreciation. So Ryan, how do you feel about this? Because bigger price, if I remember correctly, the all-time high in 2017, which was very short-lived in December 2017, I thought it was like a monthly treasury cycle, and I think it was close to $5 million or something like that. I mean, the price going up in Dash in the treasury, it makes a tremendous difference in what we can do for the network.
Yeah, this is the more interesting conversation around price. Can we hit a new all-time high? These are the types of questions I get a lot. But the more interesting question to me is, what does this mean? Obviously, if Dash Core Group is able to sock away 6 months of reserves or whatever, that makes the decisions we're making today much more sustainable. It makes it easier for us to make a hiring decision if we know that they will be able to fulfill the task that we're hiring them for. We need this developed over the course of the next year. Well, if we get halfway through and have to fire that person, that's a lot of sunk cost. And we have to ramp somebody new up later, or put that in the backlog, and the benefit to the network hits later in time than we anticipated. We can plan better when we have this. Now, the 2017 run, Dash Core Group had been created, but the trust hadn't been created. It wasn't created until late December 2017. And even once it was created, we didn't get the paperwork back from New Zealand until, I think it was February, at which point we could start to open accounts that would allow us to transfer out of the Dash and so on. And so we didn't get to take advantage of 2017. The price had fallen by the time all of these things were put in place. The same thing was true, the diff didn't exist. So the only thing the Treasury could do was grant money. And a lot of that went to, frankly, wasteful proposals. And none of it got captured for the benefit of the network for the long term, for something sustainable. What's different this time around, this is the highest price we've been at since June 2018. What's different this time around is we are able to capture that in reserves that are owned and controlled by the network. Dash Core Group is controlled by the network. No one owns the shares but the trust. And basically, we can build those reserves safely now, rather than having it sit in somebody's wallet. And we can also hedge out. We can transfer into US dollars or stable coins or something else that would allow us to ensure that that value is there, regardless of what happens with Dash's price. What happened in 2018 is we took a double hit. Not only did the price go down, which impacted our income, it also impacted our entire reserves at the same time. And having both of those things affected at the same time is a really bad setup. Now, if you hedge out to US dollars and the price goes down, great. We hedged out. We've got reserves that we can draw from. We can sustain the things that we're working on. If the price goes up, that's great too, because now our income is increasing and we can take advantage of that. And so now with the DIF in place as well, the DIF is making tremendous investments. There are a couple that I'm really excited about that haven't been announced yet, or we're still in the process of negotiating those. I think the community is going to be really impressed with some of the things that we've been doing there, and the benefit that those efforts are bringing to the network, the partnerships that it's creating. We've seen CrayPay, we've seen Quadency. I can't wait for the next one to be announced. And there are some really interesting companies that we're talking to right now that want to do more than take the investment. They want to integrate Dash, and that's really the purpose of the DIF. It's not just to make investments. We're not about to go buy S&P 500 index or something. The real benefit is we can invest in companies that can integrate Dash and build our ecosystem up in a proactive way. And so that is the difference this time around. That is why this price run matters for the long-term sustainability of the project, as opposed to, hey, you know, the budget went up. That's great, but the real difference is the budget went up at a time when we can capture that and sustain it for the long term.
Absolutely, great. That fantastic. And we have a follow-up question on that. Ryan, so you mentioned the DIF a few times, and there may be some new people watching. So the DIF stands for the Dash Investment Foundation, and Ryan is a Dash Investment Foundation supervisor. So there's a question here, but I'd like to combine it with another one as well, because you kind of address some of the investments that the Dash Investment Foundation has. But the concept of the DIF is like unique to Dash. This doesn't exist in other ecosystems. People read the news in the last few weeks about external companies, tech companies like Tesla buying in to Bitcoin. But the real secret source of Dash is that the Dash Investment Foundation can actually invest in companies, equity, and all sorts. So I'd like to expand upon this question we have here from some users, 1121. Are you currently happy with the performance of the DIF portfolio's investments? And just to provide a bit of clarity, what kind of products can the actual DIF invest into? Is it only equity, or can you buy stocks and shares? What can the DIF do?
Yeah, so several questions there. Some back history here. Back in the spring of 2018, Dash Core Group submitted a legal proposal to the network to say, hey, we want some legal funds to be able to set up this entity that would create a new set of options for the network to provide funding beyond just, you know, grants. Basically, you submit a proposal to the network, the money is granted to you, and if you perform or don't perform it, you know, it's kind of, the network doesn't benefit from a company that gets a grant from the Dash network and is successful. And so this created a new capability for the network, which is it can actually invest in equity in partners. It can, you know, loan money out, and so, you know, it's for a partner to integrate Dash, and then they can pay that loan back over a period of time. There's a variety of different options that it opens up. What the charter of the Dash Investment Foundation says is that it will invest for the benefit of the network. Now, that does technically allow the Dash Investment Foundation to invest in stocks or bonds or whatever the hell it wants. But I think the real secret sauce and where it shines is in bringing partners to the table. Hey, you're a startup. You're looking to expand your business. We'll help you expand your business, but you got to integrate Dash, and you got to make it a part of your ecosystem. And we're going to have ownership shares in your company, so we're going to have a say over that in the long term too. And so, you know, and if the company does well, then that money comes back into the Dash Investment Foundation. And, you know, if we sell those shares at a profit someday, or there's a dividend, or there's a liquidation event, or something, and it can be redeployed. It's not a grant. It allows us to continue to redeploy the same funds over and over again. And the question here is, you know, are you happy with the performance of the Dash? Well, it's these are highly illiquid assets, right? We aren't going out and investing in the stock market. We're investing in private equity, basically. And so it's early days. Some of the decisions were made by the network itself. There was a direct funding of ReadyRaider, and we accepted the shares in ReadyRaider. But ReadyRaider submitted their own proposal to the network that says we will issue a certain number of shares to the diff if you vote for this proposal. We also have accepted shares in Dash Retail, or in the process of doing that. And then there's the investments that the Dash Investment Foundation has directly made with the proposal funding that's been provided to it by the network. We'll see how these perform over a period of years, not a period of months, because they're not publicly traded. I can't tell you whether the valuation has gone up or down unless we get a formal valuation from a third party, which will be infrequent. What's more important for the short term right now, and what I'm measuring, is are we getting access? Are we getting Dash's unique features supported? CrayPay, great example. We invested in CrayPay. CrayPay is integrating Dash as a payment method in their app. We're going to get users to have access to 160,000 or more locations in the US to be able to spend their Dash at a discount that exceeds what they can get with their credit card. That's going to drive users, and that to me is a success. And so let's get that integrated, let's get that launched, and let's get the benefits out there to our users. That far exceeds the 100,000 that we invested in them. The value to each individual consumer within our network, far exceeds the 100,000. So, less than
$1 a location.
Yeah, and then with luck, the investment itself will do well. CrayPay will do well. It'll get acquired at some point. We'll get a chunk of money back, and we'll redeploy it into the next thing. So, with private equity, 9 out of 10 of them are going to fail, but the one that's successful will do really well. So I think we need to make like a good 20 investments, wait a few years, and if we get 1 or 2 successes out of that, we're going to know at that point whether we're successful. But again, we're not optimizing for return on investment. We're not optimizing for that. We're optimizing for overall benefit to the network. And so those two things are not necessarily quite the same. Yes, if the investment does well, that's great. I'm more interested in using this as a tool to build the ecosystem faster.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I actually had a few questions about CrayPay before we started from the community. So just very, very quickly, I had a question from the community that when do you expect the CrayPay white labeled version of the Dash app to launch? And also from the international community, are there any future plans to expand beyond the United States? I know this is a work in progress, but can you provide any more forward guidance on this?
Yeah, so I actually have a meeting with CrayPay this afternoon, so I'll have more information at that point. And the topic is the integration. Here's what I know. I know that they have done a substantial portion of the work to integrate the payments functionality. They have done a significant amount of outreach to additional retailers that are not currently in their system. And the reason why they're doing the additional outreach is their traditional model leverages credit cards, which charge them about 3%. So if the retailer only gives them a 3% discount, to market them, it doesn't make economic sense for them to be able to integrate, say, Walmart, which is offering 2% discount or something, when it costs them 3% to do the transaction, plus they have to service the customer, plus they have to deal with credit card chargebacks and so on. With Dash, the transaction costs are lower, right? And there are no chargebacks. And so that opens up a whole new world of retailers to them that didn't make economic sense with credit cards, but do with digital currency. And so they are doing additional outreach to expand their default 155,000 that is accessible through their credit card app to a lot more. Now, not all of those will offer a discount because, but even having access to those merchants would be a benefit to our users. So if I could shop at Walmart, even if I'm not getting a discount for shopping there, or it's a 0.5%, that's still beneficial to me because it's an option. And so we're going to be, they have done a substantial amount of outreach, and I think we're going to get tens of thousands of more locations than they already have in their app as a result of those efforts. I think we're getting close. I would be surprised if it isn't launched within 6 weeks or so, but I'll have a better answer as we get closer.
Thank you, Ryan. Much appreciated. Okay, let's move on. So we've got a question here, a little bit technical, but I think as we were talking about tokenomics, this might be an interesting one. So if the Dash price continues to go up, setting up a new masternode will become prohibitively expensive. Is this the intended behavior? I think that's part of the design, Ryan, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, the masternode system was obviously designed back in 2014. Back then, you could pick up a masternode for a couple grand, and a lot of us wish we'd done more of that. But basically, the amount of Dash that is targeted for a masternode was an intentional design decision that would result in a specific range of numbers of masternodes. And you know, what you want is you want enough masternodes that, you know, you've got strong decentralization, but you also don't want tens of thousands of these, because that actually slows down the network. All these messages have to propagate the network, and so the user experience would degrade. Now, it's not linear. If you double the number of masternodes, it's more logarithmic. It kind of, you know, the length of time for a transaction would, I guess, go more like this, right? And so if you were to plot it out. And so we are starting to analyze what it would mean to lower that threshold or create mini masternodes or something that require 100 Dash and other types of options that we're looking at. It's functioning as designed. We're happy with it. We recognize that some people would want us to, you know, change it so that they're more accessible. We are looking at that. We don't want it to affect the user experience in any way, but if we can accommodate that, we would. So I can tell you that this is a topic that's come up again recently internally within the team because of the price run. And so we are cognizant of it. We're thinking about it and having some good internal debates about how a change would affect it and what our options are there. You know, obviously platform and that is the priority to get that out the door. But, you know, we are starting to cast our eye towards, okay, what might come next? And is masternode access something we want to deal with? In the meantime, there are shared masternode services available. There are staking available on certain exchanges where you can stake your Dash, lend your Dash, do these types of things. And so there are yield offering options besides a masternode. And so, you know, I would encourage people to check that out if it's the yield that they're interested in. If they're actually interested in supporting the network and adding to the infrastructure and getting paid for it, you know, we are evaluating whether we can make that more accessible.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I'd just like to expand upon that. I do appreciate from new people looking in, seeing the 1,000 requirement for a Dash masternode as being a big barrier to entry. But as Ryan mentioned, there are a number of trusted services that offer fractional masternode ownership from 1 Dash upwards. And if you go to the dash.org website, to the FastPass section, there is a partners section that actually shows some of our staking partners. Just to mention one off the top of my head, CrowdNode, I think it allows 1 Dash upwards, and it also gives you the ability to vote as well in our proposal system. So it is open to other people, but as Ryan says, this is an ongoing conversation, and we'll look to expand upon this in the future. But there are a number of trusted services out there available to you, including...
There's a new service launching called Stakehound that would do Stake Dash, and they take the Dash, they run a masternode with it, you earn the masternode rewards, but then they issue a Stake Dash token that you can enter the world of DeFi on Ethereum or something, and basically derive two sources of income through that. So there's some interesting products out there that are coming that get into some of these newer options as well.
Fantastic. Perfect timing as well. We got a new question in. How will Dash integrate with the DeFi movement? You've mentioned Stakehound, but as you mentioned, increased accessibility to Ethereum in DeFi. DeFi is a massive buzz. Last year, it was on absolute fire in terms of the volume it's trading. We're seeing decentralized exchanges, Uniswap, SushiSwap. So DeFi is kind of like a biz dev vertical within Dash. And as you mentioned, we do have a lot of partners and integrations in the works.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. I saw a proposal just went up from Dash Next. This is a team out of Southeast Asia, and they have put up a proposal for Rendash, which is kind of a similar concept, and also allows Dash to access DeFi. So, yeah, there's a lot more access coming, and a lot of interest in building things for Dash to allow for that access. So. It's really interesting seeing this stuff develop.
Excellent. And with regards to Stakehound, there should be a announcement maybe in a week or two regarding that, because there is an onboarding process, and I think that's going to be really interesting for Dash to, once again, as Ryan indicated, you can earn rewards from block rewards, but then also there are so many DeFi applications, whether it's like Aave, lending, or providing liquidity. I mean, it really does unlock so much potential and add extra utility and use cases for Dash. So it's a very exciting time for Dash, and we're seeing increased interest in the DeFi movement. So watch this space. Okay, let's move on. Let's get another question. Right, let me just get one from here. So let's just talk about actually developers as we're talking about DeFi. So do we have any developer resources, and where can developers go to learn about Dash? How can developers get involved in Dash?
Yeah, so Dash is an open source project. There's actually several development teams working on different wallets. There's a Bertrand 256, which maintains the DMT wallet. That's a wallet targeting Dash masternode owners, but anybody can use it technically. There's the Ethereum, the Electrum wallet team, and then you've got Dash Core Group, and we're all putting out wallets, and basically with Dash Core Group, all the repositories are open. So if you have bug fixes, or you are able to suggest or develop something and request a pull request to the developers, we would of course evaluate any submissions. Beyond that, there's also a Dash incubator for developers that are looking to build apps on Dash platform, and that's led by Andy Freer. That is, I believe, available on the website. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, dash.org/developers, or you can go to dashdevs.org.
Yeah, and if you're a developer looking to integrate Dash into a service or something that you're offering, there's documentation site as well at dash.org, both for platform, which is currently on testnet. You can, test out that functionality, as well as kind of the Dash Core integration as well. So there's a lot of different options to be able to integrate Dash, build on Dash, contribute. It really depends what the developer is interested in. All that information can be found at dash.org.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, we're almost close to time, so this will be the last final question. So we'll end on a big one, and it's a whopper of a question. This is from Dragos Mining. Hi, I have a question. I think it's more than one question, but let's try and get through this. Okay, any thought on Grayscale and Gemini? Also, what can you tell us about the new partnership? Will it be announced at the end of the month? Give us something, please. Thanks. Okay, let's kind of break this up a bit, Ryan. I think there was a blog post that recently leaked that you actually authored on Gemini. So do you want to tackle that one first?
Well, it's not leaked anymore. They officially launched the, it's like almost like a Wikipedia of various projects that Gemini launched. They asked us to participate. I actually was pretty busy for like a day and a half where my calendar was just packed, and I hadn't responded to this guy. And I think it was Cameron Winklevoss wrote me an email and said, "Hey, we really want you to participate in this." I was kind of blown away that I got an email from him. But yeah, we've been in contact with the Gemini team for a while. Like any exchange, they're not very transparent about what their plans are to integrate. So I can't tell you whether they're going to integrate or not. Coinbase was similar. They work on it, but it tends to be pretty under the radar until it launches. So I can't tell you what their plans are. I can tell you that we have been in communication and providing them with, background on Dash and legal opinions and everything else that they might need. And so, we'll continue to chip away, not just at Gemini, but the New York market. The New York market remains inaccessible to Dash, even on platforms that operate there like Coinbase. And part of the legal funding that we're receiving from the network right now is going towards that. So we're engaging with NYDFS to try and make it easier for the exchanges to be able to list Dash. And so that's taking up a portion of our time, but it is something that we feel is really important. Grayscale is, obviously the largest provider of token funds. Basically, they've got, Bitcoin, Ethereum. They've got Ethereum Classic. They have a variety of different offerings, and they have not integrated a Dash product. The good news here is we're not dependent on Grayscale anymore. I think that they haven't been warm towards the Dash project for whatever reason, as have a lot of the companies that Digital Currency Group owns. We don't know the reasons for that, but we've been the recipient of some almost antagonistic here in the past that I won't go into. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I have met with them. I've visited their offices in New York. I've sat and met with their people, but they've never been particularly warm towards. And so we are not dependent on that. I'll say that much. And as far as any announcements goes, that part of the question, it's not up to me to announce it. I'm a supervisor over at the Dash Investment Foundation, but there are a bunch of other supervisors too, and we work together on along with our partners on the right time to announce. There's a lot of factors that go into an announcement, including our desire to announce and the partner's desire to reach certain milestones or have a product ready before they announce, or what have you. And so we're working with our partners to be able to make those announcements, and we're hoping to get something out within the next few weeks, but I don't have a date yet. And so if it doesn't happen right away, don't hold my feet to the fire on it. You're asking for my best judgment at this point. That's my best judgment.
Thank you, Ryan. Exciting times. Watch this space. Okay, well, I think that's going to conclude the Ask Me Anything today, as we are over 60 minutes. Just a nice message from James. Thanks for this. Ask Me Anything. Please do again soon. Well, I might have some good news for you. Well, thank you, Ryan, for taking part in this. And yeah, hopefully James might have some more good news, because hopefully this is going to be the first of many. So I would like to thank you all for watching and participating in today's Ask Me Anything. We hope you found this AMA to be informative. Please do let us know in the comments if you enjoyed this new format. I would sincerely appreciate your feedback on how you think we can improve or do more AMAs in the future, or if there's other particular guests that you would like to see from Dash Core Group leadership. If you are new to Dash and would like to learn more, please visit dash.org. We will be doing our next live AMA on Friday, March 19th. So make sure you put that in your calendar. Please make sure that you follow official Dash social media channels to be notified and to stay up to date on the latest Dash news and release updates. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Had fun.